You don't have to worry about using the word Islamofascism or Islamo-terrorists when that's what they are. Not all Islamists are terrorists, but all the terrorists are Islamists.
For 3 days, France has been gripped by an unfolding drama of unprecedented violence. The terror that was unleashed as that first burst of gunfire ripped through the Charlie Hebdo office on a quiet Wednesday morning in Paris.
Muslims are not all terrorists. Almost all terrorists are Muslims. It's a soundbite that echoes across the world, one that makes the question, why don't Muslims condemn terrorism, seems almost reasonable. But here's the truth. The presumption that Muslims stay silent is completely wrong. They do condemn terrorism. And today, we'll reveal stories that the media rarely covers. Stories of courage, compassion, and resistance against terror. You've likely never heard these stories. Why? Because, while terrorist acts make headlines, acts of bravery and solidarity from everyday Muslims rarely do. The media simply doesn't give them the airtime they deserve. Dr. William F. Vendley, a Catholic theologian who has spent over 3 decades leading Religions for Peace, the world's largest multi-religious coalition, working in over 90 countries, many of which are plagued by terrorism, knows this firsthand. And let me tell you, Muslims are far from silent. In fact, he has witnessed their courage, compassion, and relentless condemnation of terrorism with his own eyes. Let me share a few stories that might change the way you view Muslims and their fight against terror. Imagine you're on a bus in northeast Kenya, heading to the city of Mandera on a seemingly regular day, December 21st, 2015. The bus, carrying about 50 passengers, mostly Muslims, is suddenly attacked by the terrorist group Al-Shabaab. Terror grips the bus as the terrorists demand that Muslims identify the Christians on board. Their plan? To separate and kill the Christians.
A man on the bus told CNN there were 12 Christians on board. The gunman wanted to identify them and execute them.
But what happens next is nothing short of extraordinary. The Muslim passengers on the bus refuse. They pass articles of their traditional Islamic clothing to the Christians, disguising them. As tensions escalate, the terrorists grow angrier. But the Muslims don't back down. They give the terrorists a final ultimatum. Leave the Christians alone, or kill us all. Faced with this unexpected resistance, the terrorists retreat.
He says Muslim passengers helped hide some of them on the bus, and they gave the Christian women headscarves before the gunmen made them line up on the road. They stood strong, said the witness, telling the gunman, quote, "If you want to kill us, then kill us. There are no Christians here." Al-Shabaab then fled.
These brave Muslims stood up to terrorists, risking their own lives to protect their Christian neighbors. And yet stories like these are rarely told.
They're in 2 groups. One group Wafa, one the other group. So I immediately see people running to the road to stop us. And they told us to get those who are Muslims to come out, go back to class, go back to the bus.
So let me ask you, why don't we hear more about Muslims condemning terrorism? Let's travel to northern Nigeria, to the village of Nagar. It's June 24, 2018, and the area is under siege by marauding terrorists. Hundreds have already been killed, and 300 people, mostly Christians, are fleeing for their lives. Enter Imam Abu Bakr, an 83-year-old Muslim leader with unwavering bravery. When the terrorists arrived, they demanded that all Christians be handed over. But the elderly Imam did something extraordinary. He hid 262 Christians inside his mosque and his personal house. Then, in a selfless act of heroism, he walked out alone to face the terrorists and offered his life in exchange for theirs.
The house of Imam, 83 years old, Imam Abdullahi Abu Bakr, to please stand and get a round of applause.
Imam Abu Bakr saved those 300 people that day. His courage, like that of the Muslims on the bus in Kenya, defies the narrative that Muslims don't oppose terrorism. Yet, where was this story in the headlines? Nowhere.
Peace and blessings with you all. I'm here with Abdullahi Abu Bakr is a hero to so many of us Christians. Abu Bakr saved over 200 Christians that were over 300 Christians that were escaping religious violence. You were blessed by the angels on that day.
And then there's Syria. In a land torn apart by conflict and terrorism, Dr. Williams spoke with a Christian bishop who shared a story of how a local imam protected him and his community during the height of chaos. In a gesture of incredible unity, the imam stood in front of his entire mosque, calling the bishop forward to stand beside him. The imam then called his own 5-year-old son and 7-year-old daughter to kiss the hand of the bishop, symbolizing respect and protection. The message was clear. In the face of terrorism, the bond of humanity stood stronger than fear. It's these moments of courage and solidarity that we need to highlight, especially when they are drowned out by the darkness of terrorism. Terrorism is designed to provoke fear and division. The more fear, the more revulsion. The more revulsion, the deeper the polarization. And that's exactly what terrorists want. Division, hatred, and the vilification of an entire group of people. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can break this cycle by shining a light on the truth, the light of decency, the light of standing in each other's shoes, the light of courage and compassion that transcends religious boundaries. So the next time someone asks, why don't Muslims condemn terrorism? Share these stories. Share the story of the Muslims on that Kenyan bus. Share Imam Abu Bakr's bravery. Share the courage of the Syrian imam who stood with a Christian bishop. The truth is, Muslims are condemning terrorism every day, not just with words, but with their actions. If you found these stories inspiring, make sure to like this video, share it with others who need to hear this message, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click the bell notification so you won't miss more stories that shed light on the truth and unite us all. Remember, terrorism feeds on fear and division. Let's counter it with knowledge, solidarity, and courage. And always, let's stand together in the light.
Subhanallah.